세이치 선생님 안녕하세요.
안녕하세요.
네, 오늘은 중학교 2학년 여학생이 쓴 에세이를 볼 거예요. 이 학생은 지난번 학생하고는 다르게 중학생이고요, 일단. 그다음에 또 두 번째로 다른 거는 한국에서만 교육을 받았어요. 영어 유치원을 졸업을 했고, 영어 유치원에서 초등학생 반에서 또 3년을 공부했고, 엄마표 영어로도 공부를 1년을 했고, 그 이후에 대형 프랜차이즈 어학원에서도 2년을 공부를 했고, 그다음에 토플 주니어 같은 경우도 토플 주니어 스탠다드를 880점을 맞았다고 해요.
I will be aiming this edit for a junior high in America, in the US. Okay, so first off, I'm not going to say too much about this, but the heading will need to change a little bit. By the time you're in junior high, teachers will care about the formatting quite a bit. So this heading should not be in bold, and this should not all be in caps. Just the first word of every word should be in caps. And so that's the first thing about the title. But let's just move into the essay. Okay, I'll stop right here. Uh, I bet our ancestors never thought the machines they invented threat their job and surpass themselves. Okay, so first off, by the time you're in junior high, teachers will want you to stop using the personal pronoun. And so instead of saying, I bet our ancestors, it's better to say, our ancestors never thought the machines and go on that way. So you want to eliminate I, we, you, y'all. Our ancestors never thought the machines they invented. Ancestors is okay, but a better word here probably is forefathers. It's a little bit more of a sophisticated word, but the reason why something like this is better is because ancestors kind of gives you this notion of some primitive creatures, like a Neanderthal, but ancestors is okay. But this is probably a better choice in my opinion. But again, this is okay. So anyway, our ancestors never thought the machines. This is optional. In this case, I think this makes better flow. That the machines they invented. Uh, a couple of things about this word. This is one of like a Koreanism. I see this in a lot of Korean students, and I think it's because they find this in the dictionary. We never say this. It's always threaten. We never say threat. It's threaten. I've seen this before when Korean students write. And so I think this is a lack of exposure to how we use this word in English. So it's going to be threatened. Also, and they're trying to find the English equivalent, but this would be an awkward phrasing. Surpass themselves wouldn't really make sense in this context. Surpass in what sense? So you have to be a little bit more specific. So I think what the student probably means is that would threaten their jobs and surpass their own abilities or something along those lines. This is an unclear way of saying something, and the reader is not sure what that is.
네, 여기서 지금 이 한 문장 안에서도 세이치 선생님이 굉장히 여러 포인트를 짚으셨어요. 예를 들면 지금 첫 번째, I라고 첫 번째로 시작을 하셨잖아요. 이 학생이 시작을 했는데, 초등학생 때는 괜찮아요. 그런데 중학생이 된 후부터는 I, you 이렇게 인칭대명사를 에세이에서 쓰는 거를 지양해야 돼요. 그래서 이런 걸 쓰지 않는 방향으로 그냥 바로 our ancestors를 시작한다든지 인칭대명사를 시작하지 않는 방향으로 염두에 둬야 된다. 이게 중학교 에세이가 초등학교 에세이하고 달라지는 거 첫 번째 포인트 지적해 주셨고요. threat는 명사예요. 근데 동사 자리에 동사를 넣어야 되는 자리에 이렇게 명사를 넣었는데 이건 이 학생만 하는 실수가 아니에요. 방금 세이치 선생님이 말씀해 주셨던 것처럼 한국 학생들이 유독 많이 하는 실수인데 한국 학생들은 문법 공부를 진짜 많이 해요. 진짜 많이 하는데도 이걸 에세이를 쓸 때는 그런 실수도, 그러니까 동사 자리인데 명사를 썼다든지 그런 실수를 해요. 그래서 그렇게 동사를 잘 배운 거를 실제 에세이에서도 잘 적용하는 거가 여기 꼭 필요하다는 거, 그걸 얘기해 주셨고요. 그다음에 세이치 선생님 이거 한번 다시 좀 더 짚어주시면 좋겠는 게 학생이 처음에 their job, 그다음에 그냥 surpass themselves라고만 했어요. 근데 여기서 drops로 바꿔주셨고, abilities라는 말을 추가해 주셨는데, 한국 학생들이 진짜 어려워하는 게 그거예요. 명사를, 관사를 넣어야 되나, 안 넣어야 되나? 이걸 복수형으로 써야 되나, 단수형으로 써야 되나? 플루럴로 해야 되나, 싱귤러로 해야 되나? 이걸 굉장히 어려워하거든요. 그래서 여기서도 아까 job이라고 싱귤러로 돼 있었는데, 이걸 플루럴로 바꿔주셨잖아요. 이게 세주 선생님한테는 굉장히 기본적인 베이직 그래머일 텐데 저희는 안 그렇거든요. 저희는 그런 걸 되게 고민을 많이 하고 어려워해요.
So I think, well, first going back to the way that the way the sentence stood before, they invented threat, their jobs, that doesn't even make sense. And so they need would here. So regarding the would, you would need the would here in order to make any sense. So that's the first point that I would say. Um, and regarding job, that's a good point. There's a scientific way to explain this, and there's also more of a conventional way to explain it. So, on the one hand, if I have more of an empirical scientific way to explain it, or a grammatical way to explain it, it would be that ancestors, they didn't just all have one job together, but they had different jobs. That's the way that I would explain it more grammatically. But for English speakers, sometimes they struggle with this too. Is it going to be a singular or is it going to be a plural? And so there's also, if you have been swimming in English, there's kind of a natural feel to this as well. Ideally, you want to know both so that you can catch this either way. So next is the sentence, due to the development of technology. Now, this is okay. But as you become a better writer, you want to change this to this is a little bit more advanced because this is not wrong, that development of technology, that's not wrong. But this is smoother in this case, technological development, because then you can take this out and replace it with that. Now, this is going to get into the use of, which Koreans love to use. And that's going to have to be a topic that's separate because it's going to be a whole lecture on how to use development instead of this whole phrase. Okay. But how do you know whether you can do this or not? Well, it's convention. There are certain ways that we say things and there are certain ways that we don't say things. And so it depends on these two words. This one, I think it's called a head noun, and then this word. So for instance, if we were to say, due to the illnesses of his body, that would be a very awkward way of saying it. We would say due to his illnesses. So, or for instance, let's say, due to the snowfall of Hokkaido, Japan. That would be a little bit weird too. We would just say due to Hokkaido's snowfall or just Hokkaido snowfall. So it really depends on what these two words are as to whether you can change it into this or not. And the reason why I say be careful with of is because if you end up using of, the relationship between this and this, it can become a little bit unclear. So if you can state it more clearly, this is a better way to go because you can only understand this one way, technological development. So
저는 세이치 선생님하고 같이 유학생들 에세이를 많이 보면서 어떤 꾀를 냈냐면, 앞으로 라이팅 할 때 오브는 가능하면 쓰지 말아야겠다. 왜냐면 세이치 선생님이 학생들 에세이에서도 그렇고 한국에서 영어 안내문이나 광고문에서 오브를 썼던 거에 대해서 엄청나게 많이 지적을 해주셨었어요. 그래서 가능하면 오브를 쓰지 않고 말하는 방식으로 생각을 하는 게 더 영어를 잘하는 것 같다라는 생각을 하게 됐어요. 저 같은 한국 사람들은 전치사 오브를 쓰면 영어를 더 잘하는 것처럼 보이는 걸로 생각을 하거든요. 그런데 실제로는 오히려 그 반대라는 거, 되게 불분명하게 보이고 영어를 되게 못하는 것처럼 그렇게 보이니까 가능하면 오브를 쓰지 않는 방법으로 말해야 되겠다. 이렇게까지 저는 나름대로 정리를 했어요. 그래서 유학생분들도 그다음에 에세이를 쓰시는 한국 학생들도 전치사 오브를 에세이에 쓰실 때는 정말 신중하게 생각해서 쓰시고 가능하면 안 쓰는 방법도 있을까? 이렇게 한번 생각해 보고 나서 에세이를 쓰시는 걸 추천드려요.
Robots and machines are taking the features which make us superior to other creatures and make us special, such as producing convenient goods, distributing information, and creating music or arts. Now, this cuts off here. This is not a complete thought. You would expect that this would keep going on and something. Due to this, and we need one more thing. Because if this is going to be the second thing, and if they want to end the sentence here, then we need a and right here. We need that. But this essay keeps going, such as producing convenient goods, comma, that's one, distributing information and creating music or artworks, two, and then we need something else. Now, if I'm not sure what the student exactly means, but maybe this is the third one. This, such as this, and this, or it could be, this is very confusing, this, and this. So I'm not really sure here. The student will need to make more clear through punctuation, through comma, and the use of and, what's going on here. So they're going to have to clean up this sentence a little bit more. And I can comment on artworks. We don't know exactly what this is. They have to specify what artworks is. Okay, so I don't without knowing the student's intention, I can't fix this.
아,
Yeah,
네.
there are too
사실
many
저도 이
blanks.
문장을 보면서 학생은 되게 뭔가 생각을 갖고 자기가 하고 싶은 말을 쓴 것 같은데 이 말이 무슨 말을 하고 싶은지를 전혀 모르겠더라고요. 그래서 에세이를 쓸 때 다른 사람한테 꼭 읽어달라고 하고 다른 사람의 의견을 받는 게 진짜 중요한 게 내 의도가 내 글에 다 녹아 들어있지가 않는 거예요. 내 의도는 이거였는데 읽는 사람은 전혀 다른 걸 다르게 생각하거나 전혀 생각도 하지 못하게 되거나 방금 이 문장처럼요. 학생은 뭔가 하고 싶은 말이 있어서 썼는데 세이치 선생님은 여기서 하려는 말이 도대체 무슨 말인지도 모르겠어서 이거는 수정을 이전 문장처럼 해주기도 어렵고 저 역시 마찬가지로 이게 무슨 말이지? 라고 잘 모르겠어요. 그래서 유학생분들이 에세이를 쓰시고 나면 꼭 주변 사람들한테 이게 읽어봐. 그리고 혹시 무슨 말인지 잘 이해가 안 되는 부분이 있으면 나한테 말해줘. 라고 해서 그 부분을 체크해서 다시 간결하고 명확하게 쓰는 과정을 거치시는 게 좋겠어요.
So that's exactly right. That would be the same for American students as well. They
맞죠?
write something on paper and they assume that the reader knows what they're talking about. And so oftentimes when I'm editing even American students' papers, I have to say, what do you mean by this? Because for the reader, I don't know what this is. Now, for Korean students or, someone whose native language is not English, that problem is going to be multiplied because they have the same thing. They don't know exactly what they're putting on paper. The reader doesn't know exactly what it is. But for the Korean student, they probably also lack words compared to the American student. So they don't know how to exactly express it, but they don't have as many words in their mind, in their arsenal to explain it with. And so I think their challenge is a little bit bigger than American students, but there's an overlap. You need someone to actually read your paper to tell you if what you have written makes sense or not. So that's exactly right. Okay, and then if we keep going here, however, will they feel emotions too if they develop in the future? If they develop in the future, this is awkward phrasing. Say if we develop maybe more in the future, if they advance in their abilities in the future. So we need to be a little bit more clear. we can't just say if they develop more in the future. So develop how? And so we're gonna have to make that more clear. Okay. So this one, I see this with a lot of both English writers and students too. This one, I think from this context, we could tell that they're talking about robots here, but or machines here. But because machines are all the way back here, or robots and machines are all the way back here, by the time you get to here, because there's so much space, it may be good to talk about them again, renominalize, rename them. Will robots or machines? Because they could end up being someone else. If, let's say, another subject comes somewhere in between here, then they is going to end up referring to the closest subject. So oftentimes we just say they or it, thinking that the reader is going to know exactly who you're talking about, but oftentimes we don't. It's not clear. So I would probably say robots or machines here. However, will they feel emotions too if they develop more in the future? Okay. Now this here is it's a fragment. This is not a sentence in itself. Such as love, wisdom, and braveness are what the humanity has thought as their own characteristics. So you can't say such as, you can't start a sentence like this. You would say qualities such as, you can say that. Or you can say virtues, characteristics such as love, wisdom, comma, and braveness are what the humanity, know the here, know the, what humanity has thought of as their own characteristics. Now, what we want to say here is as their probably unique characteristics. Own is a little bit different. Own is mine, but what you want to say is humanity has unique characteristics that robots do not. So you have to say unique here and not own. For the record, I think AIs and robots won't know what the emotion is, know the, and I will tell you some reasons to support it. Now here, for the record, this is awkward phrasing. We would not really say this. You can leave this out. And we still have the issue here of I, but we'll just leave that for the time being. This sentence is going to be the thesis, so this needs to be strong. So you can just take this out. Oftentimes when we say I think, it ends up making your argument weaker. So instead of saying, I think this is going to happen, instead of that, just say it. AIs and robots won't know what emotion is. Oh, also, when you're in junior high, they don't want you to use contractions. So AIs and robots will not know what emotion is, and I will tell you some reasons to support it. Instead of saying, I will tell you some reasons to support it, just say what those reasons are right here. That's what a thesis is. So this thesis should be AIs and robots will not know what emotion is due to, and then say the topic sentences right here. What are the reasons? 1, 2, and 3. Instead of saying, I'll tell you some reasons to support it. So this will not be acceptable in an English paper.
네, 이거는 사실 이 마지막 이 thesis 대한 거는 이전에 했던 그 초등학교 5학년 학생의 thesis 에세이에서도 초등학교 5학년 에세이에서도 같이 나왔던 건데 초등학교 5학년이기 때문에 thesis 에서 분명하게 어떤 것에 대해서 말할지를 다루지 않고 그냥 한 문장으로 간략하게 thesis를 얘기했는데 그건 5학년이니까 초등학생이니까 그 정도는 괜찮아요 했는데 이제 중학생이면 이제 미국 중학생 기준이겠죠? 미국 중학생 기준이라면 thesis에 서론 introductory paragraph에서 thesis에서 구체적으로 밝혀주는 게 그게 되게 중요하고 이게 바로 좋은 에세이 점수를 받기 위한 요건이라는 걸 염두하고 다음 에세이부터는 쓰시면 좋은 점수를 받으실 수 있을 것 같아요.
Yeah, and this part is going to be very important, the thesis. So usually in American classes, English classes, they will spend at least a few classes going over what is an acceptable thesis, what can work as a thesis, and what does not work as a thesis. So even the thesis itself is sort of complicated, especially depending on the topic that you want to talk about.